Are you planning on a big trip or getting ready to go on a big trip?
Welcome back to the Happy Place Diaries. If you are, stay tuned. This is going to be a good one. You're not going to want to miss it. Welcome back to the Happy Place Diaries. I am, as always, Jerry, and
This is Teresa.
And in this episode, we want to talk about major trip planning or long extended trip planning. We're getting ready to take a fantastic trip this summer, and that requires a lot of planning. So we've basically narrowed it down to 5 things that we think are really important when you're planning that big trip. And I'm not talking just a weekend to the beach.
Or a week, yeah. We're talking like 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, anything, I guess, over a week and covering
many states.
A lot of miles, right. All right, well, let's jump right in. So the first tip that we think is really important is, as you're planning, remember to keep the end in mind. So do you want it to be a big loop, or is it going to be out and back? And we're going to get into some of the components of that, but always start with the end in mind. What is the goal of the trip? Are you going to see family? Are you going to see friends? Or are you just going to check out some really cool scenery? But what is the end of the trip going to look like? In the case of our trip this summer, it's a big loop. So we're starting the first part of the trip heading east, and then we got to turn around and come back. But rather than going just out and back, we're making it a nice loop. Okay, tip number 2
is your length and stay in days. So your length in days, you want to figure out how many days it's going to take you to get there, how many days you're going to stay at each stop. And like for us, we only go 3 to 4 hours a day. And our first big trip, we learned that we can't drive, sleep. We need to take a break. So you need to really count those days that you're going, and then that's your length of time that you'll want to determine what your route is going to be.
Right, and I have a tendency to always think aggressive when we're planning. And so let's say we're heading to Rapid City, South Dakota, for example. I look at the map and go, oh, well, that's just, a 26-hour drive. We could easily get there in 2 days.
Yeah.
But then you realize I'm only good for 3-4 hours a day. And if you want to stop along the way and see cool stuff.
Right.
The first time that we ever did a very long trip, cross country, we were super aggressive on the front end. And halfway through the trip, on our turnaround, we ended up just canceling all of our reservations and just taking it, as playing it by ear all the way back.
Because a 10 and an 11-hour day are way too much to be traveling. It's just too much. For us, it was too much for the dogs. And
yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
And so it just became very unenjoyable. And the whole purpose of RVing is to relax and enjoy. Okay, let's move on to number 3, and that is destinations. So as we're planning our trip, we're looking at those major destinations that we want to see. So we might want to see Mount Rushmore or
Deadwood.
Deadwood, South Dakota, or Yellowstone, or something major. So a really good tip when you're talking about destinations and getting more bang for your buck, which will be our next tip, is use a good trip planner, or just pull out the good old-fashioned map and draw a circle around that big destination. And so let's take Mount Rushmore, for example. If you put a pin on Mount Rushmore, you've got Black Hills National Park, you've got Deadwood, South Dakota, you've got Sturgis, you've got what is it? The Crazy Horse. You've got all kinds of really neat stuff in that area. So if you can plan for a central campground or RV resort or RV park or whatever,
Right.
you can kind of base camp it there and save a lot of money doing it that way, but also hit a lot of destination locations on your route, and then kind of move to the next thing and do the same thing. Drop a pin on it and draw a circle on what are the things that you could see in that area. So that's a really big thing, and we'll talk about tools in a minute, but dropping a pin and getting the most out of an area when you're looking at destinations is a really great way to get a lot out of your trip. All right, so we kind of teased it there. The next tip is
Budget. You want to make sure that you know how many places you're going to stop and how much money you want to spend along the way. We do the Harvest Host, so we know that when we plan it, we don't have to pay for a Harvest Host. But if we do end up staying somewhere where we usually get a KOA or another private area, so you need to know how much those are, and getting on the internet and finding your destination and finding the resort or campground that you want to be at. It will always give you the amount that it costs.
Yeah, and that's a good time to look at your memberships. Teresa mentioned the Harvest Host, and we're fortunate that we have the benefit of military campgrounds, and we're KOA members, and I know that there's a lot of you that are Thousand Trails members out there. So as you're dropping that pin, just kind of look around, and what we know too is you get better rates the longer you stay. So if you can stay at a location for a week versus 2 nights, you're going to save money in the long run. Not only are you going to save money on the campground, but you're going to save money on fuel, getting there, and all of that. If you're towing a vehicle behind your coach or Class A, those vehicles are going to use a lot less fuel than lugging that big rig around from campground to campground. In our case, we're towing, and so we get better gas mileage when we're not towing. So if we can plop the trailer at a campground and go explore from there, we're going to save a lot of money. The other thing that we like to do is prepay. Get all of the campgrounds taken care of. Any attractions that we could buy tickets for in advance, we like to prepay so that once we hit the road, really all we need to budget for is food and gas.
And then
little incidentals.
Right, and little things we buy when T-shirts,
right,
novelty things, I guess.
But it's a really nice way of going into the trip, knowing that basically you're going into the trip debt-free, so to speak. It just helps you relax because you're not worrying about paying for that next campground or, whatever. Also look at passes. Look for, ways that you could get into the national parks, national forests, and things. Passport America, the America the Beautiful pass. Those are really great ways that you could save a lot of money on entry fees. So look at your budget. Prepay as much as you can, and then hit the road because then you just know everything's kind of laid out for you and you're ready to go. And I lost my.
That's right.
There it is.
What's the last one?
So the final tip that we have is
planning tools.
Planning tools. Tools that just help you out in your planning. And you don't need to go totally high-tech if you don't want to. You could just pull out the old Rand McNally and, get out a highlighter and start drawing your route and seeing where you want to stay. We use a planning tool called RV Trip Wizard. We'll put a link in. There is an annual subscription fee if you want to use all of the features. But if you don't want to pay for it, there is you could get on there and browse. Also, memberships have good planning tools. The KOA website, Harvest Host website, and Harvest Host now are starting to book online. So it's really nice because you could kind of see the attractions around there, see the Harvest Host that's on your route. The same thing with KOAs. You could do a lot of that booking online, and then the ones that you have to call, you just pick up the phone and call them. But you find that a lot with the military campgrounds. They don't have a great online system, depending on which MWR location you're dealing with. And then some of them, it's just easier to talk to the person on the other end, because the websites sometimes aren't always kept up, especially with the world that we live in right now and some of the restrictions. Sometimes it's best to call and actually get the scoop of what's happening in that area.
Another tool that I was just thinking about is there's an app for rest stops. So if you know the freeway that you're going on, you can plug that in and it'll show you all the rest stops going north and south, east or west. And it's kind of nice because if you've been driving for a while and you want to know, you can just look on your app and say, okay, milepost 22, there's a rest stop. Why don't we stop?
Right. So yeah, there's Gas Buddy is a really good app for help planning fuel stops, rest stops. You can filter it by your needs. If all you're looking for is diesel, if all you're looking for is spaces that you can actually get in and out of, you could see them along the route. All Stays has a really good rest stop tool. All Stays has a whole family of apps that help RVers out with rest stops, campgrounds, you name it. It's on there. And again, the more you pay, the more you get. But we use the free versions of All Stays and military campgrounds. In fact, we actually use the All Stays Military Campgrounds app, and that helps us out. But Gas Buddy is a really good one.
That's the only one that I really use.
Right.
And
we plug some of those destinations in to our RV GPS, which helps because then we know it's not going to send us off of the major freeway into somewhere that we can't navigate. So, take a look at some tools out there. There's a ton on the internet. Even Google Maps, Google Earth is really nice to have because you could get a picture of where you're going, and kind of, for me anyway, even if it's 5 hours away, it gives me peace of mind knowing that once I arrive at my destination and I've been on the road all day and I'm tired, I don't have to fight the exit, and we can plan our route accordingly. Okay, so that's 5 tools to help you plan your next extended trip. We highly encourage you to get out there. We're doing, like we said, kind of teased, we're doing a huge trip this summer, and we'll talk more about that as we get closer to it. But we're starting the trip in June, and we're really ending the trip in August. We come home for a week, and then we hit the road again for a week, and then come back. So I'm kind of counting that because all we're going to do is laundry, get the trailer ready to go again, and get back out on the road. And then I guess I'm going to give a bonus tip, and I'm going to kind of make this a teaser tip. If you could travel with friends, do it. It's a lot of fun. And I'll leave it at that. All right, as always, we thank you for coming along our journey with us.
So just a reminder, hit subscribe, ring that bell, tell a friend.
Do all the things.
And remember, a happy life
starts in a happy place. We found ours and we're motivating you to get the most out of your RV. Thanks for coming along. We'll see you in the next video.